Blessed evening, sir. This is the group 2, and we will be discussing about the different characters of the story Time Machine by H.G. Wells. Let's start.
Good evening, I am Janelle Daimel. One of the major characters is the time traveler. Role in the story and how it affects other characters. In H.G. Wells' novel The Time Machine, the time traveler serves as the protagonist and the primary driving force of the plot. Siya ang ga-invent sa time machine which he uses to travel into the distant future where he encounters two different species of beings, the Eloi and the Morlocks. The time traveler's journey into the future affects the other characters in several ways. First, his disappearance initially puzzles and concerns his friends who are left wondering what has become of him. When he returns from his first journey, he is visibly changed and traumatized by his experiences, and his friends struggle to make sense of what he has seen. The time traveler's encounters with the Eloi and the Morlocks also challenge his assumptions about humanity and the nature of civilization. He initially assumes that the Eloi who seem to live in an utopian that society are the pinnacle of human evolution. However, as he delves deeper into their world, he realizes that they are actually weak and vulnerable, preyed upon the savage Morlocks. Ultimately, the time traveler's experiences in the future lead him to question the course of human history and the fate of humanity itself. His journey serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of complacency and the need for humans to take responsibility for their own destiny. And that's all. Thank you.
Okay, so Wina, her role in the story was, I mean, she was one of the Eloy, and she was a friend of the time traveler. She was, I mean, they were strangers at first, but they got close along. I mean, as the story goes, so they were. Yep, they were strangers at first, and I believe somehow she's important to the time traveler because at first she saved Wina, and then also she protects her from or against the Morlocks, and I think that's the thing that it affects to the time traveler.
So, Castillo Nicole Angela. One of the major characters are the Elis. So, the Elis represent elitism of the rich who bask in their wealth and do not work to contribute to the civilization. They are not capable of working, and the hustle they gave to the other creatures, especially to the Morlocks, matters. Despite being living with no adversity, they cannot like kanang wala sila gamit or wala makuha sa ilaha, wala ma-contribute or any idea or any general notion, and that's how they affect to the characters in the story. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I am Emma Ming Tao, and um, the Morlocks are the villain in the story Time Machine by H.G. Wells, wherein they hunt the Eloys as their prey during nighttime because they have eyes that are sensitive to light. They make challenges for other characters such as the Time Traveler and the Eloy. That would be all. Thank you.
Good evening, sir. This is Caroline Inso, which is the major character narrator. The role of narrator is the one who provide what happened to the story, which is the experience of the character, and also um, the narrator is the one who give to help the readers interpret the event, And also, overall, the narrator present it helped to be more realistic and reliable the story, which is the time machine. By the narrator, the reader of the story will understand what happened to the time traveler and all character. Thank you.
Good evening, madungog ra ko guys.
Yes.
Oh.
Bear with me because my signal is not stable. Okay, good evening. This is Darlene Casio, and I'll introduce the following minor characters of the story Time Machine, namely the British man, second the doctor, third the psychologist, and lastly the journalist. The description of overall characters is intended to cover all the characterization as one, since the following minor characters doesn't show much role in the story. Now let's proceed to characterization. In the story of Time Machine, the mentioned minor characters are British men, doctor, psychologist, and a journalist. The following characters are the guests of Time Traveler, sharing the same reaction of being skeptical about the claims and ideology of Time Machine. Their presence are important in a form of how their characteristics perceive the perception and belief of the time traveler, which is the scientist, about the time machine. Each character represents a different perspective on society, science, and psychology, and their interactions with the time traveler help to nurture about the perception of time machine and its context. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I am Wenelin Kamingaw. So, the effect of minor characters toward major characters in Time Machine by H.G. Wells. The minor characters affect the major characters in a sense of how minor characters could have similarities to the creature from the future pertaining about their behavior, thought, interests, and feelings. For instance, the Morlock and Eloy, which was descendants of British people, therefore they are kind of a society that evolves over time. The Eloy represents a peaceful and innocent society that has evolved without the need for technology, while the Morlocks are savage and brutish creatures who prey on the Eloy. These minor characters have a significant impact on the time traveler's understanding of the future and his perception of humanity's fate. That's all. Thank you.
Good evening. I am Ding Ding Jeremy, and this is the physical and mental appearances of the time traveler. So, in H.G. Wells' novel The Time Machine, the physical appearance of the time traveler is described as a lean, active figure with prominent nose, gray eyes, and a mustache. He is also described as wearing a short coat and Astrakhan Cup. Regarding his mental appearance, the time traveler is depicted as an intelligent and curious individual who is passionate about exploring the mysteries of time and space. He is described as being introspective and contemplative, constantly pondering the implications of his discoveries and the fate of humanity. He is also shown to be brave and resourceful, able to adapt quickly to new and challenging situations as he travels through time. That's all. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I am Tulibas Freya. So Rina is a character in H.G. Wells' novel Time Machine. She is a member of a species called the Eloi who live in a distant future or 802,701 where humanity has evolved. So Winna is physically described as being small, with golden hair and delicate psyche. Her skin is soft and smooth, and her eyes are large and bright. She is often depicted wearing a simple tunic made of a light material, and Winna is mentally portrayed as being innocent and curious with a childlike wonder about the world around her. She is fascinated by the time traveler, the protagonist of the novel, and quickly forms a bond with him. Despite her apparent lack of intelligence, she displays moments of insight and bravery, such as when she saves the time traveler from drowning. That's all, and thank you.
Well, good evening, everyone. I am Castillo Nicole Angela. And Eli's appearance, they are described as small human-like beings, and they seemed feeble and much less intelligent than the time traveler hoped the people of the future. Of course, because when we say future, people there are expected to be more knowledgeable and more advanced. And Eli seems to be no adversity, fear, or labor in this world because the Morlocks are the one who provides Eli's essentials and necessities. And this explains the weakness and stupidity of the Elis. In addition, Elis and Morlocks can be viewed as representations of the divisions of classes in the society. That's all. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Once again, I'm Mintao. The appearance of the Morlocks are mostly ape-like creatures, and based on the movie adaptation of the story Time Machine by H.G. Wells, which is directed by Simon Wells, they have they are blue-skinned creatures, and they have a hand like the sloth, and their feet are brutes. In Time Machine, they are described to be a humanoid species, which is also a descendant of the humans, just like the Eloys. They prefer dark since they have been in the dark underground for a long time, that their eyes became accustomed to the dark and became sensitive to light. Morlocks are carnivorous since they eat meat, and they are also cannibals because they even hunt the Eloys for food and eat them alive, which also makes the time traveler conclude that they are also evil. The Morlocks have a symbiotic relationship with Eloy. Morlocks provide cloth and food for the Eloys, then later they make they make them as their prey. The Morlocks represent the lower class British in England opposite to the Eloys. The time traveler even determines that Morlocks evolved because of the class division of the Victorian England, wherein they are the opposite of the Eloys, who are descendants of British rich. Meanwhile, the Morlocks are the descendants of the British poor, considering that they are toiling underground, tending machinery, providing food, clothing, and inventory for the Eloys. That would be all. Thank you.
So, good evening, everyone. I am Asia Mulan. I am going to give a brief discussion about the appearances of the minor characters. First, we have the psychologist. The psychologist is one of the guests at the time traveler's dinner party at the beginning of the novel. He is described as having a cold blue eye and a pale face, and is seen as a skeptic of the time traveler's stories. Second, we have the British men. The British men are also guests at the time traveler's dinner party. They are described as being stout and red-faced, and are depicted as being more interested in the discussing politics and current events than in time traveler's theories. Next, we have the Doctor. The Doctor is one of the time traveler's friend who is present at the dinner party. He is described as being a little man with a white face and a black beard, and is seen as being more sympathetic to the time traveler's ideas than other guests. And lastly, we have the journalist. The journalist is another guest at the dinner party. He is described as being a young man with a pale face and a shock of black hair, and is depicted as being more interested in sensational stories than in serious scientific inquiry. Thank you.
So, good evening, everyone. I am April Mayonto, and I will be discussing the characterization of the time traveler. So, the time traveler is the book's protagonist. He is an eminent but eccentric British scientist, and his particular interest in time travel leads him to build a time machine that transports himself into the future. He is a well-read and intelligent man of science. He is versed in the theories of his day and very clearly a Darwinist like Wells himself, and his thoughts echo much of Wells' own theories about the Britain of his time. The time traveler is a man of wit and intelligence, and thus a perfect candidate for interpreting the future for the readers. He is well versed in all the major theories of his day, from math and science to philosophy and economics. So that's all. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I am Jingle Iharango Monsanto. So, in addition to what Miss Yunto said, my opinion is that the time traveler in H.G. Wells' The Time Machine is a man driven by his passion for science and invention, willing to take rest and make sacrifices in order to pursue his dreams. As the story progresses, we see the time traveler's personality evolve and mature. He is not a one-dimensional character, but rather a dynamic and nuanced individual whose experiences shape his beliefs and attitude. One of the things I find most intriguing about the time traveler is his ability to adapt to changing circumstances. When he arrives in the future world, he is initially hopeful and optimistic, but as he discovers the dark secrets lurking beneath the surface, he becomes more cynical and disillusioned. Yet, even in the face of danger and uncertainty, he remains determined and resourceful, never giving up on his quest for knowledge and understanding. The time traveler's journey in the science fiction through time is also a metaphor for the human experience. Like all of us, he is constantly searching for meaning and purpose in a world that can be both beautiful and cruel. His journey forces him to confront his own mortality and the transience of human existence, leading him to question what it means to truly live. As to the uh, as to the question why the time traveler is the only character in the fiction that has no name. So, in my view, each Jewel's decision to leave the time traveler a name in the time machine is a masterful stroke of storytelling that adds depth and complexity to the character. By not giving him a name, Wells is able to create a sense of universality that allows readers to identify with the time traveler and experience his journey more deeply. Additionally, the absence of a name emphasizes the time traveler's outsider status and detachment from his own time period, making his psychological and emotional journey all are the more poignant. Overall, I believe that the decision not to name the time traveler is a key element of the novel's enduring appeal and relevance. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, so hello everyone. This is Rhea Miras, and allow me to share with you the characteristic of Wina. So, as we all know, Wina is one of the Eloys, and I could say that Wina is very appreciative, or she appreciates small things or even big things. So, makaingon ko ana, it is because of that scene because si Wina na kuan man ni siya kanang nalumos man unta ni siya, but then gitabangan siya ni time traveler kay nakita man siya ni time traveler, so he helped Wina, and then because of that she always gave him or the time traveler flowers to express her gratitude, and kanang grabe kay niyang pag-appreciate ato kanang murag iya ganing gitan-aw nga nang in my own opinion ha, nang makaingon ko nga appreciative siya kay iyang gitan-aw nga murag utang niya iyang kinabuhi ni time traveler because if wala si time traveler maybe she would be dead by that time. And also Wina is loyal because when we say loyal, di ba, kanang stick to one, like kanang magsunod-sunod ra gyud kung kinsa sa usa ra gyud ka butang or usa ka tawo. So I could say nga si Wina loyal because actually after or kanang sa iyang pagsigig hatag og flowers sa time traveler, also she always follow the time traveler wherever he goes, and that's also part of her expressing her gratitude to the time traveler. And then on that kanang summary nga that was given to us, so wala siya ni by the time nga nagmeet sila ni time traveler, wala siya ni kuan nga ni goyog siya lain, but then even sa katong kanang gitry ni time traveler og kuha iyang time machine, si Wina kay nagkuyog-kuyog gihapon niya. And then Wina is also very expressive. Makaingon ko ana it is because katong kanang scene bitaw nga nagsunod-sunod siya, mohatag siya og flower, and then she even expresses her kindness by putting a flower in the traveler's pocket, and nga which is nadala pa ganito sa time traveler pag kanang pag-uli niya. So expressive in a way nga ang uban man gud kay or some people could appreciate, yes we can appreciate, but dili nato siya ma-express ang atong pag-appreciate. So Wina is very expressive in a way nga iya ging gi-show ang iyahang pag-appreciate sa ni time traveler. And then also on the other hand, Wina is also kanang fearful in a way nga whenever the time traveler leaves her, she fears so much. She fears the dark, and later on the time traveler found out why Wina is afraid of the dark. It is because the Morlocks, who are cannibals, they eat Eloy like Wina. So yeah, also I could say nga si Wina is weak pod because kanang if she was afraid of the Morlocks, right? So if di pa siya weak, so iyaw talabanan ang mga Morlocks. So kanang mahadlok man siya sa Morlocks kay especially the air cannibals. So I could say nga mas weaker siya than Morlocks. And also that scene nga katong niadto sila kanang katong napalibutan na katang naay mga Morlocks in the dark, and then di ba nagdaladala na tuog light, something light si time traveler para dili mo duol nila ang kanang kuan, and then nibalik ang mga Morlocks, and then nakuyapan si Wina. So mao to that's I mean muna siya ang akong stand nga nung week, makaingon ko nga week pod si Wina. And then that's all, thank you.
Hello again, this is Jingle Monsanto. So, as for Eloy, Eloy is the passive and childlike species in the time machine, represent the danger of a society that is content with idleness and pleasure. Their physical beauty and lack of intellectual drive make them an alluring yet tragic cautionary tale for humanity. It is clear that the Eloy have lost touch with their potential for creativity and innovation. Instead, they choose to spend their days in leisurely activities devoid of purpose or meaning. This lack of ambitions has left them vulnerable to the Morlocks. Kay katong katong na gipalibutan sila sa Morlocks, di ba, kay kanang kuan si time traveler mga ito ang ni defend nila, who are not only physically dominant but also possess a cunning intellectual that allows them to enslave the Eloy with ease. What is perhaps most concerning about the Eloy is their emotional emptiness, the lack of the deep of feeling that makes us human, rendering them incapable of experiencing fear or anxiety. This leaves them completely helpless in the face of danger and at the mercy of those who would exploit their vulnerability. In the end, the Eloy represent a bleak future for humanity. If we become too enamored with pleasure and fail to cultivate our intellectual and creative potential, we must be wary of complacency and strive to push the boundaries of what is possible, or else we risk becoming a society that is enslaved by its own lack of ambition. That's all.
Next, the characteristics of Morlocks. Morlocks are the other human descendants aside from Eli's. They are the descendants of British poor. As stated in the story, the time travelers saw a white ape that dashed down of one of the wells, and that they are human descendants too. And after thousands of generations living without sunlight, they have adopted it, and it pains them when they see light. So that means they are afraid of light. And that is why the Morlocks live below ground in a system of tunnels. The tunnels are can be entered through ventilation ducts that are scattered around the landscape. The ducts suck air inward and looks like wells. The Morlocks are meant to be the villains in the story. They are terrifying creatures who reside underground, feasting on the peaceful elites. And they act as cannibals because they hunt and eat the elites. And which means they are considered as killers because they hunt, kill, and eat the elites. And they are described by the time traveler as evil, inhuman, vermin, and rats, which we can see that Morlock is the main antagonist of the story. And that is all. Thank you. And by the way, I am Alpha Landron Rev. And again, this is the group 2 presenting the different characters of the story. And thank you, sir, for having us. Goodbye.
Good.